Subscribe to Simply Bitcoin.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome in. You made it to another episode of the Meme Factory podcast. So did we. This is the Bitcoin stream test number 135. As anybody who watches knows, we'll never have a real stream. It's only going to be a stream test. That way they can't actually shut us down. This evening, we're joined by none other than Texas Slim himself, looking like some version of a rock and roller over there, or a crypt keeper. What are you doing?
Well, I've been around the world and it's been a 4-year tour and we just came back home. So we thought we'd dress the part and get the ambiance just right for you boys. It's been too long. We got a lot to report and it has been. It's been a freaking road tour and we just finished up in Nashville. So here
Well,
we go.
I'm excited to hear all about it, but before we get started with that, you know what needs to happen. We need to have the ad copy read so we can all get paid.
Okay, now, and I want you to know I didn't get a chance to memorize this, but I did rehearse it just a bit in
All
my
right.
mind. And I think it's original, and I think this is a winner.
All right.
And we're gonna go with this. Okay, we're going straight to press after this. It's out. So here we go.
Printed.
Yes. All right, guys. Hi, my name is Slim. In this episode of the Meme Factory, trademark podcast is brought to you by our friends at Suscorp and their new children's product, Gummy Gear. Gummy Gear? I don't know. It rhymes with bear or gear, an anabolic steroid in gummy form. A century ago, little Timmy developed strength and fortitude on the floor of steel mills and textile factories, doing manual labor that grown men struggle with today, as our children have swapped out coal mines for Minecraft. It's no wonder they have grown soft and paralyzed by bit tits, estrogen, and too much anxiety. Suscourt thinks that your children should be strong enough to fight off classroom communists while also being moderately prepared to compete against the cheap labor of Chinese child sweatshops. To that end, we have crammed all the essential nutrients a young boy or girl needs straight into this gummy gear or gummy gear. It's full of what? Ooh, all kinds of synthetic testosterone, nicotine, 100% real chemical flavoring too. Did you know that the artificial flavoring for raspberry was derived out of the anal cavity of a beaver? Yes. Anabolic. And to throw on top of that, we got you some good old anabolic steroids. Would you just please shut the fuck up, Arnold Schwarzenegger? Please. All right. And to top it off, just what she likes to lick on, a little bit of organic cane sugar. So, hey, with ingredients like this, it's no wonder it's recommended by 9 out of 10 pediatricians. Somewhere. I don't know. We got them, though, but they're somewhere. Don't worry about that. So pick them up today at your local gym's locker room from that guy in the fanny pack. You know the one. He's the one, baby, with that lone wolf t-shirt on.
Thank you, Slim. That was excellent. I think everybody knows that guy in the gym.
That was great. That was great.
You know it. Hey, good writing. Good job.
Hey,
Fantastic.
Good ad
Well
libbing.
done. Yes.
All right, so when I reached out to you last week to see if you could make it on, the first thing that caught my attention was that you said you were out wrestling cattle or something. You were out on the trail, and I didn't know what that meant other than you were unavailable for most of the day, most days. So
Right.
fill me in. What were you
Yes.
doing?
Well, like I said, hey, this month right now, as we said, I was on harvest 4 years ago. I had been doing research for about a year and a half prior to going on harvest. And so you usually take harvest all the way into the harvest moon and everything into the fall. But, I figured out it was like, okay, this is, I was going down so many rabbit holes. And so, this last week I came back home. It's been 4 years since I went on harvest. I left harvest early wrote The Harvest of Deception, and I haven't stopped since then. And it's pretty amazing that it's been that long since I've been doing all of this, collectively. And so, like, whenever you text me the other day, man, I'm just out there checking playa lakes, and I'm looking at land. I'm looking at water wells that are being capped. I'm looking at inventories of cattle. Yeah, I'm in the Texas Panhandle. This is where all this started. And a lot of people don't understand what the Texas Panhandle is. 85% of all Texas cattle comes straight through my gates right here in where I was basically raised, where my people have been here since the late 1800s. And so there's so much historical value here that you can watch and you can observe. You can say, hey, this is what's going on in industry. And so that's kind of how I was able to create the beef initiative. So I'm acting like a cattleman again. This is what I was taught to do: a farm boy, cattleman, livestock, agriculture, dirt roads, wells, playa lakes, all that kind of shit that you do. We just had the biggest wildfire in Texas history, and it was up here in the Texas Panhandle. And I've been reaching out and working restoration projects. We've got a documentary coming out next month, and it's going to be a fascinating documentary. So I'm just getting back into being like the modern day cattleman. And it's nice because I've been hustling. I've been around the world, twice. And I drove 160, about 80, I think 168,000 miles probably in the last 3 years. So I haven't stopped. So I'm getting back to home, and we're going to basically create the new modern day cattle industry. And that's what we've been able to do in the last 4 years.
Before we get into the modern day cattle industry, there were a few things you were talking about that I didn't really understand why that was important. You're talking about a playa lake. I don't know what that is or why it's important. And now we've got two
Yeah.
yellows.
Well, and it's a good question because it's kind of what we've lost ever since we went off the gold standard. And this is something I get to kind of bring to the general public now, where I come from the Texas Panhandle. It's called the Llano Estacado. It's the Great Desert High Plains. It's the Cap Rock. What it does, it sits on top of the biggest aquifer in the United States that feeds all of our agriculture and our livestock, and it's called the Ogallala Aquifer. Okay, up here on the Cap Rock, we've got 20,000 playa lakes. Those are recharge zones into that aquifer. Ever since we went off the gold standard, what we did is we switched all this great grassland into monocropping. That's why I know so much about the harvest. And so what we've been doing for 50 years is we've been sucking that aquifer drive through these pivots, and that's how we do irrigation.
Drive through these pivots, and that's how
We
we
replaced
irrigation drive through these.
massive feedback.
Yellow,
My
shut up.
bad, my bad.
All right, no worries. But anyways, what we went into, we used to irrigate from the ground up, and we had these pivots that we created. So these pivots go in a circle. They're pulling the water out of that aquifer. What they're doing is they're watering commodity grains.
Is a pivot
Okay.
is a pivot that big circle that a hose kind of?
Yes.
Okay, I've seen them from
Yes.
the air. I didn't know what they were called. Pivots.
Exactly.
Right.
And if you've looked at agriculture before 1971, everything was still square. But now if you're flying on the plane, you get all these circles. That's a pivot. And so in the Texas Panhandle, we got all these playas. Those playas are a really good indicator of what your water source is and how you're kind of using your land and your water systems and everything, and how you can switch into agriculture and different forms of agriculture. Well, before this, we were 100% cattle country, and a lot of wheat, a lot of corn and shit like that, but we weren't into the massive commodity grain type of industry that we're in now. So we're checking on these playa lakes because they're the recharge zones of the aquifer. What they're starting to do up here in the Texas Panhandle, they're capping wells that have basically been drawn out of the aquifer the last 50 years, and they can't pull any more water out of it to feed those pivots to basically water commodity grains. And that's what I've been looking for as an indicator where I can go in, start investing, get basically cattle back on those lands, fill up those playas, basically, not have to use the well system, just let nature start taking care of itself, get cattle back on that land.
Slim, when you
As
talk
soon as
about
possible. So that's what we've been kind of switching into.
when you talk
Go
about the
ahead.
playa lakes being recharge centers for the aquifer, which way does that work? Does the lake recharge the aquifer, or is it backwards? Do I have that backwards?
What happens, we have these big old thunderbusters that come through here. We have flash floods and everything. So you get these tributary runoffs. And what they do is they run into, and that's kind of your capture of those rainfalls. It just doesn't go directly all into the soil. You got in these recharge zones. And that's why the Comanches love this land up here, because it creates all these little mesas and everything. So it's a fascinating geographical system. But what happens, it captures those floodwaters and those rainwaters, but then there's basically a microbiology system that's been formed throughout thousands of years because the bison and everything is that there's forage around these playa lakes where they sit here and they drip down into the aquifer. So, and then they feed the livestock. The livestock basically feeds off that water source, and then they go fertilize that grassland. And that's what we lost, especially when we went off the gold standard.
Gotcha. So, fiat driving, cash crops, monoculture
Yep.
forces you to draw more water than you otherwise would have in that particular area, draining your aquifer. If you don't have more cows in the land anyway, you're not going to make more topsoil, and you're getting rid of the nutrients as you monocrop. Do I understand that right?
You got it. You just nailed it.
All right,
You're hired.
and then these
So,
pivots, I'm assuming for the monocrops are just like popping up everywhere, draining the aquifer more than it otherwise would have, and then even the natural refilling from, what did you call them, thunder bastards?
Thunderbusters.
Thunderbusters.
Yeah.
So these thunderbusters come through, give you your flooding, refill these playa lakes, recharge the aquifers. Cows eat off of the grass that comes around the playa lakes. So it's a whole natural system that kind of got disrupted by these monocropping subsidies.
Yeah, and it wasn't just right during the 70s. We got into it, especially during the Great Depression, and prior to that, the Dust Bowl. I mean, I grew up right there next to the epicenter of the Dust Bowl. So we've farmed the land for the wrong reasons, the wrong commodity crops, but we've never used the water system like we use it now. And that's the biggest indicator. And that happened basically after the gold standard.
So how do you?
And that's why, it's fascinating because, we've got guys that have, basically been working cows and land here their whole lives, and they don't understand that system because they're so captured by basically the system that was created after 1971. So it's a hard balance to get in the mindset. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance. But whenever wells get capped, they're going, you can't argue with that fact. All right, here we go. That's verified, and that's reported to the federal government. That land value goes down. You think there's going to be grants to grow that commodity bullshit on that land anymore? No. So I'm looking to where
So you're
we can
looking
get
at
pennies on
these.
the dollar.
That's a great
Yes,
idea.
we're looking for a price drop in this land. Before I went off to Asia this last time, me and Justin went out
It's
to
my
a
favorite
place
country.
outside of Tulia in Happy, Texas. And it's out there on a dirt road out in the middle of nowhere, but it was a half a section. And so it had a playa lake on it. It had 320 acres, which is a half a section. It had an old farmhouse. And I think they had a price for about 589,000. I was over in Asia for about 65 days, something like that. And I came back, I checked that land again because that's what we're doing. We're looking at all the indicators. It went from 589,000 down to 489,000. I think it's dropped even more. So you start looking at those indicators, and that's what I've been waiting for 4 years to do. So I think that we're in a kind of a switch and a pivot. And so that's it's going to be fun about this next phase of Bitcoin, next phase of the cattle industry, just everything we've got going on right now. This is a fascinating time from my perspective. We've never seen this before.
Are you paying attention also to Fed funds rates as an idea of like
Yeah.
when to buy? Because it looks to me like the housing market or land market is overheated, and
Oh, yes, big time.
I think that's going to come down at least a little bit, and then I think they're going to cut rates into it.
Yeah, I agree. Because we're looking at financing in many different ways right now. We've got Cole Bolton, K&C Cattle. I mean, he's one of the pioneers of the beef initiative. He's one of the best cattle ranchers I know. And you got Hometown Meats there in Luling. He feeds all of our Austin people, basically. But he's a banker too. So we've got eyeballs on all kinds of different financing within the beef initiative. We've got Brianna Sagdahl. She's now our senior, basically, research analyst. She's probably the best research analyst I've ever come across in agriculture. She's now the editor in chief of Beef News. And so what we're also do, because we've got some people that, we've got our intelligence people, but we're seeing financing changing in so many different ways. And so just not only the Fed, but how they've been funding USDA funding over the last 50 years is changing. And some of this money is being pivoted out of agricultural livestock into this fucking fake meat corporations, or this new industry. I'm sorry. So we're seeing changes on the basically the credit level as far as the highest level of government loaning down into agriculture. And this is a huge shift because we're also seeing a lot of corruption. We have the farmers versus Biden, which is Dustin Kittle. He was there in Nashville with us. He's got a lawsuit against the current administration with Farm Credit Bureau. There's all kinds of corruption within that. So
How
we're
so?
discovering what they've been doing is they've been calling out loans on people like Dustin Kittle. He's fifth generational farmer rancher there in Tennessee. Never missed a payment, nothing. They try to call out his loan. And what they're doing is they're calling out good loans on good generational clients, and then those loans are now being given over to multinationals at first grabs. So what it is, it's basically a asset reallocation that's going on through the financing through agriculture. And so just like they did the fucking motel system in the 80s, is they're trying to do with our farms in the United States now. So we're discovering basically there's a lot
did
of
you
bullshit
say
going on.
Slim, did you say the fake meat? And by that, did you mean the laboratory grown? What do
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah, the fake meat, well, everything that is fake meat, really, from the cricket dust all the way into 3D printed meat, into
Okay.
stem cell meat, to, every bit that they've got. And every fake meat company, okay, this is where I get to start talking all kinds of good intelligence too. Every fake meat company in the world basically has its start in Tel Aviv, Israel. A lot of people don't know that. So follow the money into Israel with the fake meat companies. Look what Bill Gates has done and all that kind of stuff. And so what they're also doing though, as far as pattern languages within USDA and how we classify food as food and descriptions, they're redefining the definition of meat right now too at the highest levels, especially on a global level. So what that means
What do
is
you
they
mean?
can go
What
in
do you
and
mean they're
create a whole new fake.
redefining the definition of meat? Who's redefining?
Well, look what they do with, with milk right now. You don't really have milk anymore. You have all this pasteurized bullshit, and then you have oat milk. You have all this bullshit. And so it's not milk. And so everybody can call themselves, hey, this is milk, and it's not milk. Same thing with meat. Used to, if it was freaking beef, it was if it was a ruminant animal, that was basically, living, breathing, basically livestock, that's meat. And, it's classified within USDA. Well, now they've gone in there and they're basically creating a new pattern language and definitions of what meat is. Once they do that, at the highest level of financing, at the highest level of basically food labeling of what, in the English language, what meat is, and therefore you can cross-pollinate all kinds of new industry in that way, to where that money that's being shifted out of the USDA and livestock is now being shifted into this whole new fake industry, which coincides in with the basically climate change and the war on the fucking cows and cow farts and everything.
It's the same reason why they advertise now like products like chocolate flavored and not with chocolate.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
there's no chocolate inside.
100%
there's
real
no more
chemicals.
chocolate. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Science,
Remind-
all the
Yeah,
science you can
science.
swallow. Mhm.
Welcome, Becca. What's up? And
Hello,
Luca.
Becca.
Becca and Luca, yeah.
Hi,
It's been forever, Becca. How are you?
I'm balls deep in mom's life.
How is that? Did it slow
Um,
you down a bit?
yeah. The diaper GD is overfilling behind me, so that's pretty much it sums up my life.
Congratulations, Becca.
Thank you. He's an angel, but a
course.
terrorist too.
Of course.
Yeah.
And from you. So there you have it.
Yeah.
He's a giant.
Do you guys?
I'm surprised he's so quiet
Sturdy.
right now.
Are you feeding him beef yet? That's the question of the day.
Not yet, but
Okay.
probably next month.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
he's
still on the breast.
Okay, breast milk, then you got to get the bone broth, and then you got to feed him like a bird, okay? Chew it up for him and start feeding him like a bird, little strips of ribeye, and he'll be good to go.
That's the plan.
Becca doesn't have the best track record with birds.
I hate them. Pigeons.
Well, now you get damn pigeons. How about an eagle then? A mama eagle. You feed it like a mama eagle. There you have it.
Yeah, I'll take that. I like that. Huh? What do you think?
All right.
Yeah. You're so well behaved right now. Okay.
All right, so Slim, what were you doing on your world tour for the last 4 years?
Okay. So, well, where do we so first off, we went over to Australia, okay, and we'd been I've been looking at the national cattle industry for a while, my whole life. I come from commodity cowboy country. I'm in the belly of the beast. Over my shoulder, about, I don't know, less than 30 miles, is a place called Hereford, Texas. Okay, that's the cow capital of the world. And it really is. And so, coming from this part of the country, industry from processing to cattle feeders to associations. I mean, it grew up every morning that I woke up with my young eyes on those dirt roads of West Texas. It smelled like cow shit. Okay. So it's been that way my whole life. So I had to go smell cow shit on different continents because what's going on is not only happening in the United States as far as cattle industry, what's happening is they've built new ranches across this planet. And other countries are going to suffer the same thing the United States are, then other countries are going to benefit from that suffering. And that's what's going to happen in our food supply. And that's what a lot of people can't grasp right now. So the cattle industry is a
Can you
really
go
good
into
indicator.
detail? Can you go into detail about what you mean that's what's going to happen to our food supply?
Well, if you look at, and this is, I'll start off with some sayings. They've built new ranches across the globe that used to not be there. And I'm talking about big ranches, industry ranches.
Like in Brazil?
And so yeah, exactly. Like who cut down the rainforest? Well, that was fucking China. Okay. And they financed it through American debt. And then they cut it down and they turned it into a big, massive ranch. Okay, so now this is where the North becomes the South becomes the North, and in agriculture, in the cattle industry, and so many things. Right now, the United States is now a net importer of beef. We produce the best beef on the freaking planet, and now we're importing more beef than we even have access to in the United States of our own raw material. Okay, and that's happened over since basically this shift started happening. And it really started happening after 2012 in the cattle industry. And you looked at Cargill, they've done simulations, and Cargill's a big freaking cattle industry, multinational powerhouse. Cargill is just, from seed to cattle, they own it and control everything. They've got, something that mirrors the CIA with intelligence. These guys are big dogs, but they've done simulations and everything. So they've road mapped out how agriculture is going to change with the livestock and how they're going to have to increase in populations. There's countries right now that can't feed themselves. We have 400 million refugees being dispersed across the planet over the next 10 years. This is changing food systems and it's changing agriculture in ways because what they're saying is that this is not sustainable as far as cattle ranching.
How do
Well,
you
that's
get
bullshit.
how do you get that
Go ahead.
number, 400 million?
That came from basically some petroleum companies that are aggregated distribution companies that deliver protein plus petroleum across the planet that I've been working with for a couple of years. They've got those types of numbers from the intelligence that they have to go off of as far as shipping lanes and filling containers of, byproduct or chicken feed or whatever. So they're predicting about 400 million refugees in the next less than 10 years at this point in time.
Because they won't be
And
able to
so
find food in their home countries. Is that what it is?
pretty much, and you're looking at this forced migration that's going on in Europe and everything. And so there's a lot of different indicators that they're seeing that are kind of matching up with the simulations within agriculture. Well, whenever they say cattle ranching is not sustainable, well, what they're talking about, they're telling on themselves as far as the multinationals. And so JBS, Cargill, Tyson. And so what they're done is they're telling on themselves in a way to where the only people that are going to get fucked out of having cattle, access to cattle and beef, is going to be the West. Now the East is taking over, and now they're becoming the best customer for Western cattle and the best cattle being basically stewarded across this planet, which is still the United States. So we're just being driven out of our own market access of our own food supply, and it's being sold on the global market in a way that it's never been done before. And that's only going to expand. And we have to find new lands. You have the rainforest, you have all that kind of stuff. They're not getting rid of cattle. They're going to increase the population of cattle. They're just going to decrease our market access to it, supplement us with another fake commodity, fake meat in the West. And then all
How
that good beef is going to be shipped
how would
overseas.
they be able to reduce Americans' market access to cattle and beef? And
through
who is they
through
in
the
this scenario?
processing, yeah, through the processing centers. Okay, the processing centers, the packers. Okay, we call them processing center packers. That's JBS, that's Cargill, that's National, and that's Tyson. 85% of all animal protein in the United States is processed and controlled at the auction house, processing center, thus then distribution. Okay, so whenever you have all of your cattle, 85% of Texas cattle coming through my part of the country where I am in the belly of the beast of those four multinationals, once those cattle go into that processing center, they've already been saying, hey, that cattle was sold to China 4 years ago. And so it automatically gets on a fucking plane and leaves this country. And so that's what's
No
going on
shit.
with our food supply, and it's doing it under basically under the radar of the general public's understanding.
All right, so then where's American beef coming from?
Well, right
The
there
stuff
is
that
the
we're eating.
$1 million question, right? Okay, 80% of American beef, okay, in the United States, what do you think that we consume more than anything?
Beef.
Okay, beef,
Ground.
okay, but ground beef, ground beef. 80% of America's consumption of cattle is beef. Okay, ground beef, I'm sorry. So, okay, so what we do with our basically fats in the United States is we ship the best cuts of beef overseas, best half cows overseas. We keep all the suet, that's the fat. Then we bring in and we ship in all the trim cut from Uruguay, from Brazil, from Africa, from New Zealand, from Australia, from Mexico, so everywhere. And then that's what America is eating right now. 80% of our beef in the United States is imported trim cut from different countries.
And I'm
These are
assuming it all gets
facts.
ground up together, so you got like hundreds of cows in
Yes.
your one
There
burger.
you have it. Yeah, that's why
Oh,
they did that test with 1 pound of ground and it had 92 different genetics in it. So, yeah,
were they all cow?
they were all cow.
Okay, well at
As
least there's
far as
that.
we know.
At
Yeah, I
least
don't know,
there's
man.
that. Holy shit.
We're living in the damn, we're living in clown world, man. You just never know. See, they're redefining what meat is, though. Remember that. That's going to be something that we follow.
That's a
Whenever you,
normal. That I
So
feel like
is there
that's a
so
normal
is there a
government trick. You remember like 4 years ago when the Trump administration redefined what a recession was? So we said we weren't in a recession.
oh yeah,
That
it's
was
all the
fun.
pattern language. But when they're doing it on the financing level and stuff like that, it's interesting. So
so is there like a scientific way or plan of theirs to dilute real grounded beef, whatever that comes from, with fake meat also?
oh yeah, that would be a win-win. They're already doing it, really. They just don't have to define it. I mean, very short period of time ago in the United States, if you had a bean and beef burrito, you had to have 50% bean and 50% beef. Well, throughout the years, is that's really not the case anymore. So you don't really have to have beef in that beef and bean burrito anymore. You can have tastes like beef, looks like beef, everything on the little ingredients that nobody ever reads,
Wow.
right? Well, that's soy, that's different types of byproduct that comes from different types of, ingenuity of our food systems. But yeah, they'll be putting in cricket dust within probably ground round from Uruguay. There's this, and it'll be in the pattern language of the labeling saying it's Morning Star, South America, sun shining up your ass, with this beautiful new protein. So there's no telling what they'll do, but they're going to try to combine and process together as many basically commodities that they can get. That's how they turn food to be such a highly profitable model during the 50-year fiat system that we've been since we
So
went off the gold standard.
so these
So
companies,
the more that they can
Tyson,
So
process,
Cargill, they all feel like they've captured the American market and can do what they want with it at this point. So that's what it sounds like.
oh yeah, I mean basically JBS. I'll bring some stats and y'all can Google these. But what happened during COVID is JBS price manipulated the retail beef market in the United States to the sum of about half a trillion. What was it? Hold on. $500 million in profit in less than 24 months. Okay, the current administration only fined them $56 million. And so nobody ever even heard about that. Well, what happened? That drove hundreds of producers out of business. We shipped in beef from Canada and Mexico. to supplement our shortage of beef that they were covering up, but COVID basically, was able to shine light on that. So they're going to manipulate the lobbyists, everything they can. I mean, hell yeah, it's corrupt as all get out right now. And, you look at Tyson. These are just facts. Tyson used to be basically a mom and pop American company. Okay. Years ago, it was a good company. It was a good poultry company, and it became poultry. It became hog, bacon, everything. It was, Tyson. Well, who owns Tyson? Well, that's Smithville. Well, who owns Smithville? Smithville is owned by the CCP of China. And so if you look at our hog industry, okay, we're not eating basically American hog anymore either. We're eating China hog. And so one of the, comments today on Twitter was, hey, ask about mRNA. Well, we know for a fact that across this globe, mRNA technology has been used in hog for years now. And so if you're eating hog from a company that's owned by the CCP of China, then you're probably eating some basically fascinating chemicals and, products from pharmaceutical companies.
Well,
And
specifically, the specific issue with the mRNA was that recently the FDA said that, or is in talks to say that an mRNA, an mRNA injected and vaccinated animal can still be considered organic,
right.
which I found
Yes, they're
a little ridiculous.
well, of course, and that's the FDA, and that's basically the pharmaceutical company basically working with the FDA that's basically pushing all these, these new things, especially within pharmaceutical, within livestock. I mean, you see what they're doing with the avian flu right now and what they're doing with mRNA technology within hog that they've already used. But let's go back to the question of, mRNA. Well, what are they doing with organic? They're starting to add new substances of organic, these new coding things and stuff. So once again, they just move the fucking, the board basically every time they're doing this. But one thing that they're definitely doing when it comes to mRNA that people really need to pay attention to here, if you're really concerned about that, I just told you that 80% of the beef in the United States ain't coming from the United States. And we know for a fact across this planet, there's other countries that are lining up to use mRNA in beef, Australia being one of them. And so this is going to happen. So if you don't know, and we are Bitcoiners here, and this is about as serious as I can get, if you're not verifying where that freaking beef is coming from, man, you're going to be playing Russian roulette if that's what you believe, if that's what your ethos is. And so that's why I came up with, go shake a rancher's hand, because that's what it's going to take
More,
in
I
the
have
United
I have I
States.
have two questions. One is naive.
Sure.
So why do they do that? Why do they dilute real beef with fake meat or other kind of meats? Like, is there really a need for meat that they're not enough cows, simply put, or is it just greed or a combination of those?
No, it's a combination of greed, but that greed has also basically created a lot of disease in the type of farming and factory farming with livestock that they do. So there's warrant to their basically concerns about, the way that they grow their beef, which is these massive, processing centers that kill, harvest 5,000 cattle a day. That's a lot.
Okay.
That's just one processing center. So the greed behind that has created this type of system that does cause disease. And so they thinking we have to innovate food in a different way. And so that's just what they're doing. That's part innocent, but it's also 100% driven by greed, but also driven by people that don't want to be too much into our own damn business when it comes to agriculture, when it comes to living, because the way that they're looking at food now to be transportation for the pharmaceutical industry, that's coming as well. And it never has been talked about before, but they're very much front running that conversation now at the basically the front lines of like where I am in my small town. There's probably more boards of directors of animal pharmaceuticals than any place in the United States. And so I think that within the university systems that are here now, that they are definitely going to be using, chemicals within livestock in a way that a lot of people really, if you don't know where your damn food's coming from, you're going to get caught up into something. And the United States is a perfect place to be right in the middle of this, to be able to kind of broadcast it out, especially within the Bitcoin network, of what's going on in all these different continents, because that's one of the most valuable things about Bitcoin is the network that I've created, that I can actually have access to these different countries to look at the agriculture in those continents and what's going on.
So my second question, less naive one, is if they have a plan for that, does that have anything to do with the so-called many incidents we saw on news through those couple of years with fires here in that facility, an accident there in that facility? Like, how does that connect?
Well, I
If it
think that
does.
there's a lot of stuff, man. The cattle industry is a fascinating, the Yellowstone is the number one basically TV show. Well, that's about cowboy culture, cattle industry, agriculture, and it's a fascinating thing that we've created. But I can tell you what, there's a lot of corruption within, not from the producers and ranchers and everything, but truly deep within. You look at the type of money that's moved through the cattle industry in the United States. Man, that's hundreds of billions of dollars that, you have control and access, insurance, all kinds of things. If you
Okay,
look at the United States right
I
now,
got you.
I ask people, what's the value of the cow? Where is it right now? And I'm going to get to your point about the processing centers and fires and stuff. But I ask a lot of people where the value of the cow is right now. It's in the USDA insurance policy. And so where is that money coming from? Well, that's government money, and a lot of people know how to manipulate that money into the hands that they wish. And whenever that's happening to our food system, that's a highly subsidized food system, that you have these massive insurance companies. Hell yeah, there's corruption, and hell yeah, there's nefarious things, and hell yeah, there's just accidents. And so, but one thing that's going on, there's an industry shift that is unfolding, and that's without question. It's going to take about 10 years to watch it flip itself. And we're right about, about year from when they got their marching orders to 2004, we got about 5 years left until they're ready to basically reinvent food in ways, if we allow them to do that in the way that they're doing it. And the loss of processing centers, they've got new processing centers that they're building. And some of these processing centers do both livestock and fake meat at the same time. And so these things are starting to pop up. Plus, they have 100% ruminant processing centers, which is would just say cattle and hogs. So there's nobody in there. It's all robotic. So the harvesting and the slaughter and the precision cutting is going to now go into robotics. So if you look at that industrial shift that's happening because of technology transformation, the money reset we're going through, plus everything that's happening in agriculture, there's, all things are happening for many different reasons. So
Slim, I had an absolute nightmare scenario play out in my head when you were talking about the mRNA and in cows, mainly because I was thinking about Monsanto.
right.
So most folks understand that, like, Monsanto controls their monopoly by owning this genetically modified crop that they then
Yes.
essentially let commingle with other crops, because then they can go and sue local producers for using their product. So
Yes.
the scary part to me was like, what if the same thing happens with the cows, or like whoever's running mRNA injections in their cows, right? So those cows commingle with other cows out on the land, and then eventually you can just go to a local producer's farm and say, oh, that's a Bill Gates cow. You're gonna have to shut down
Yep.
your operation. We're gonna sue you into oblivion. Is that
Well,
am I just spinning wheels in my head here, or is that a real scenario?
no, one thing that you're pretty sharp. I'll give you that much, because what they're really doing with all this, and it's not Monsanto anymore, it's Bayer. So just remember, Monsanto was bought by Bayer, which makes Monsanto even more of a scarier beast than it ever was.
Bear's the one that
And
made
it's got,
the
German.
chlorine gas for World War One and
yeah,
Two, right? Okay,
Yes.
yes,
got it.
yes, yes.
So they have a history
And
of it.
so that
Bayern.
Monsanto is just a new division of Bayer. So just imagine that, right? But if you play out that scenario of how they cross pollinate within seeds and all, with basically genetically modified bioengineered crops and all that kind of stuff, and the technology use agreement is what you're talking about. Well, within cattle, okay, one thing that's never happened is we've never been consolidated and we've never been centralized because we basically love our cows and they're wonderful beasts
Whoa.
because they're independent and they're sovereign. They really are. They love to graze and they don't like people messing with them. They work every day. They just basically the land tools. And so what we've been able to do in the cattle industry is we've let those cows be sovereign until that one bad day that they become, the tomahawk ribeye. So what they're doing in the cattle industry, not only will they do it through certain types of injections and basically vaccines, especially if they perpetuate the disease that they're causing through these massive farms and factories that they basically have created, and now they're blaming the general public on. Well, what will happen is that they'll be able to introduce different forms of technology and pharmaceuticals to do just that. And one thing that I'm fighting hard against is RFID chips. And they're basically ready to basically digitize our cows in ways that our producers don't understand. And if they can digitize our ear tags and they can basically identify our cows from space and they can start doing all that metabolical fucking tracking and tracing within our cows, man, they've got us. They've got our food supply and it's bye bye. Basically, get ready, man. We're eating out of boxes.
What do you mean?
So
Break
we're
that
just
down
eating
for
out
me.
of boxes, man. We don't have access to our food supply anymore, man. They
Just because they
digitize
can track the
basically ear
cows from
tags.
space? What do you mean?
Well, if you're tracking cows from space and you're able to basically look at that cow and say, hey, okay, this cow is, using this much water, doing this much type of metabolical fluctuation, and then they write into basically laws, that Bayer has helped pass as far as, hey, this cow's, needs this basically pharmaceutical because you're not really paying attention to its metabolical health, but we're able to track that and we're able to do inventory. We're going to see that your herd is, it's pretty stable. It's not basically making too much a footprint right now. This is how they're going to basically track and trace all movements of cow that they can enforce into the producer. Say, you're a bad rancher, you're out of business. You can't get access to financing, you can't get access to the auction house anymore. And so once they've got that type of digitization that they've never been able to perform before, they can push those pharmaceuticals through in a heartbeat. And that's what they're trying to do is they're trying to do the RFID chips and the pharmaceuticals at the same time. And if they get them basically in conjunction as far as facilitating into cattle industry, we're fucked. And this is what a lot of independents, they're starting to pay attention to. The associations, the cattle associations are starting to wake up to it. Some of them aren't because the RFID chips have a lot of good use cases and they really do. And so, but who's got that damn data, man? What are they going to do with that data? And that's what I'm fighting with. And of course, we're all about encryption and Bitcoin. So I'm going to be on a project here pretty quick about getting all that data and make it, where somebody couldn't get access to it. If they pass that RFID chip saying, hey, that data needs to go here first, and we can lobby, because that's what we're doing in the beef industry right now with Brianna. We're writing policy now. We had Dennis Porter that came to Nashville. And so we're doing policy work within the cattle industry and Bitcoin. So we're working with Dennis Porter in the Satoshi Action Fund. And so we're starting to bring these types of maneuverings within the cattle industry right now to where we can fight off some of this. Because I'm serious, if the RFID chips happen and they can trap the information, independent ranchers and producers are no more in the United States. You can't even take them across state lines if you've got it chipped. And a lot of times we do grazing and we share lands with,
What
between
happened to
Texas
freedom
and
of
New
movement?
Mexico.
Why wouldn't you be
Yeah,
able to take them across
exactly.
state
They're going
lines?
to yeah, they won't be able to, they won't allow you to do that. It's the,
So as they're fighting self custody in Bitcoin, at the same time they're fighting like independence, like farming
yes.
from
And
small
that's,
folk.
but once again, Bitcoin exposes the truth, both in basically money, of course, but it also exposes the truth in the cattle industry. And that's what's been, so great about being in this space for over 4 years now, is that we're learning a lot just because of my different perspectives that I bring in from the ethos of Bitcoin. And, because beef industry really was established on the Bitcoin ethos. And I looked at cattle industry of what I knew from growing up and where I am, and what we talk about in Bitcoin and how the use cases and the value and the store value and the authenticity, the transparency, the ledger. That's how we used to operate within the cattle industry. They match up in so many different ways, and that's what I'm trying to get the cattle industry to understand. So we've come a long ways in 4 years.
So Slim, running a little short on time, and I want to make sure you get an opportunity to talk about any projects you're working on that you want people to know about.
Well, right now, man, it's all about welcome to beef.com. Man, this is about really truly, changing the consumer demand. We've got over 250 producers in the beef initiative right now that have come in voluntarily. But what we're also doing right now, we're talking to over 500 to 700 new producers that are going to come through the gates of the beef initiative. This is industry stuff, guys. This is just not about saying, hey, we're the next butcher box. No, we've got processing centers right now that are breaking ground. We've got basically brand identity for ranchers that never had it. We've got full vertical integration from that cow's genetics all the way to your fork. Everything that they promise you out there in the fucking centralized world of the food industry, we've actually accomplished in the beef initiative. And this is where we scale out. And so we need the Bitcoin people, man. Everybody out there, let's really make this. This is industry changing. And we've got pioneer ranchers in here that are full Bitcoiners now. I mean, this is fascinating times, but we need people to pay attention because the facts don't lie. We're not eating our own food supply anymore. And so take control, man, because I really think that what's going to happen in the cattle industry here pretty quick, I'll just say within the next 6 to 9 months, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think the cattle industry at the auction house, at the wholesale pricing auction house of cattle, it's extremely high profits right now. It's going to drop and boom. And that's whenever they turn beef into caviar. At the retail market, they inflate retail. You don't get market access ever again to beef in the way that we have it today. So by knowing you're not eating American beef anymore, we have to go out there and change our consumer demand in every which way. And we've got to be leaders in this at this point in time. We lost 27,000 ranchers and farmers last year in the United States. This year, we're already over 17,000 that we've lost. And they are people that were waiting to basically sell us beef. And so we've got to get off of fucking Google and, we've got to get into this layer that we've created through the beef initiative. We've got hundreds of producers that are waiting for Bitcoiners to come out there to educate them, but also to help support their, fucking herds. And we've got a lot of things going on in the beef initiative. We're going to start doing some herd share programs. Like I said,
Sounds
we
like
got the I Am
communism.
Texas. Exactly. It's the best type of cattle communism you can get, man. And it's going to be led with Bitcoiners, though, man, because it's going to have a Bitcoin angle to it as far as financing and how we can bring new financing into these producers because financing is drying up for all these, these herds. Like I said, the money is shifting. So we're going to really lean into the Bitcoin space. So just support the beef initiative. I've got a new branded beef line. I'm basically forking off the beef initiative. The beef initiative is running itself through the ranchers, the producers, through June, through Brianna. So I'm going to go out there and go into the next horizon. So everybody pay attention because we got over 2 terabytes of basically content that nobody's ever seen before. So we're going to start hitting all social media. We got video teams, editing teams. We're going to of course, we just did the Cattleman's Feast in Nashville. That was huge. That was we've had over, I think, around between 600 and 700 people over 2 meals. So that's pretty fascinating. It's come a long ways since Kerrville, 4 years ago. So
Very nice.
welcome to beef.com.
Welcome to
That's what it is.
beef.com.
And you know what was so cool? Crowd Health sponsored that, man, and they've got this new carnivore, basically Crowd Health thing. So we're partnering up with Crowd Health because they've got all these new metabolic markers, and so they're going to give you discounted rates to basically eat more beef. And basically, we're going to team up so we can give all their clients beef, and then everybody can get basically cheaper, not healthcare, but medical coverage in a way. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good partnership, man. That's what we're doing, man. It's all about the collaboration, right?
Hell
So
yeah. All right, so Rope hasn't spoken at all, as far as I can tell today. So I'm going to lean on him for his British accent, if he's willing.
Hello, g'day. Texas Slim. If the meme factory did exist, and we all know it doesn't, which one of its members would you like? Which would you retweet? Who would you mute? And for bonus points, who would you zap?
Well, is zapping the same thing as saying "fuck you, Greg"?
You can put a note on it.
No.
Can we do that? I just want to start off with just by saying "fuck you, Greg." So
Perfect.
that's it. Zap.
Cut it. Clip that.
All right, got a zap
And I
fucking
got it.
Greg. Nice.
Okay, all right. Big Sean, I have to say, Big Sean did his best to get me down to El Salvador. So, what's the biggest sign of respect that you can give, and what's the worst? What would y'all say?
Mute. Mute's the biggest sign of respect.
Mute
I
is
would say.
absolutely the
Mute.
biggest sign of respect. Yeah.
Is it? What's the other? What would be reverse?
Retweet.
A retweet. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, Big Sean gets thirsty, so he gets muted. So
It's not often he gets muted. He'll enjoy that.
that came. Yes. All right. What's the next one?
You
All right, what do I got to do?
You got a like and a retweet.
Like and
Retweet. Oh, I got to retweet the best Bitcoin mama on the planet, man. It's got to be Becca. I mean, look at her. This is what we're here for, the children. I mean, we really are. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're teaching our children how to eat. So these dumbasses that we're having to hang out with currently can get out of our way, and the children can be the next cattle ranchers across this planet.
You hear that? You're going to be a rancher.
Yes, a Bitcoin rancher, a Bitcoin and the sovereign rancher. There you have it. Retweet. All right, what's the next one? What do I have?
Like, wasn't it like?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right, Yellow. I just like everything that you're about. So mellow yellow. What's not to like about that? Just yellow.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Everywhere I go, every continent. This is something you guys need to hear. Okay. Everywhere, and this is kind of an inside thing, and I've really never shared it, but everywhere I went. Okay, I've been 3 continents, 2 hemisphere, 168,000 miles across the United States. Everywhere I went, within every basically week, I saw, and I wasn't on social media, so I'm not talking about social media. I saw yellow in so many different forms and fashions. And so, yellow, you have international brand identity. I want to work with you as far as your monetization. And so, let's put you on basically a nice little stallion, and let's get you cowboyed up. And so, let's monetize your butt. So,
I can picture Yellow with a big cowboy.
He needs to be on a horse so bad.
Really,
I can do that. I can do that. Tony
Yes.
Hayes.
Yeah, you could do that.
I like it.
Yeah, you could.
Let's get busy. And we had a pretty good meme for the Cattleman's Feast. Did you guys see that? It was pretty good. Okay. Y'all aren't the meme factory, but would you ask those guys if they approved of that type of meme? Should we do more? Because once they come for us, folks, and they come for our food supply, we're going to have to mock the shit out of them. And so we're going to recruit.
Oh, yeah.
And we're going to go to war with these guys, because here it comes. I saw basically the marketing that they've been doing in Australia and in Asia. That shit's coming here. It's in the UK already. So you know what that means. It happens in basically Australia first, then the UK, and then it comes to the United States. And we see what's going on in the UK right now.
Big bad Luca's going to save us.
Yes.
Yep.
You're going to be a rancher, huh?
All right, so that was
cowboy up.
Welcome to beef.com.
Welcome to beef.com.
The Beef Initiative.com.
And if you want to get the best beef intelligence on the planet, bar none, it's beefnews.org. I'm telling you, you can actually even order your beef through beefnews.org. So get busy.
And if you want to follow Slim on Twitter, he's at Modern Tea Man.
That's it. And I have no TikTok. I think I have an Instagram, but it's not me, man. So it's basically a doppelganger or my digital twin.
No, well, Slim, really appreciate your time tonight. Chinese farmer.
Hey, I lost my other cowboy hat in Australia, and I lost my cowboy boots in Thailand with Captain Sid. We were on the road to Pai. We had about a freaking 100 switchbacks that day, and I had them strapped onto the back, and freaking somebody saw them fly off, and they didn't fucking say anything. So I lost my boots. So we got some basically Thai rice farmer. He's got a pair of cowboy boots on his mantle. So here we go.
Sounds good.
I got some stories, so get ready.
All right, Slim. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everybody
Thank
for
you,
joining
guys.
us tonight.
Great to be
Cheers.
back.
Stay safe.
Y'all
Have
be
a
good.
night.
All right.
Good
Yeehaw.
night.